God bless everyone. We're continuing these videos, the teaching videos on Canada's roots. And we're looking at personalities and people that influence this nation. We just named him Bishop John Strachan. He lived from 1778 to 1867. And he was the first Anglican Bishop of Toronto and founder of Ontario school system. And he stated that the church must continue to play a central role in education. You cannot divorce religion from education because schools will inevitably reflect the philosophical and religious or irreligious biases of those who direct them. And that's very true. There's an agenda. Whoever controls the school system, they control the children's mind, or they influence it. It's a better word, has a very strong influence on the children's mind. And he was from the Church of England, the Anglican Church, who was the church, official church. And I talked a little bit earlier in terms of John Bunyan and in terms of what happened in terms of separation from church and state. And here is where I'm going to contrast this personality and the next one in terms of John Strachan and also Egerton Ryerson, who, interesting enough, Ryerson University is named after him. He was a prominent Methodist minister, founder of the public education system, and as I said, the university is named after him in Toronto. And he wrote, he wanted common patriotic ground of comprehensive and avowed Christian principles. And he wrote in the textbook, First Lessons in Christian Morals, which was published in 1871, where he said the Ontario school system was to be a Christian public school system. So that's the foundations of the public system. Later on, I'll talk about the abuses in the other school system with the natives. However, this time I'm going to contrast Ryerson with Strachan, the Methodist minister versus the Anglican minister. And so he wrote again, also another quote from him. He believed the primary task was to make men Christians in heart and life, in temper and work. In 1841, he became the first principal of Victoria College in Colborne. And in the inaugural address, he stressed he taught the college would have a balanced curriculum, taught that the college would have a balanced curriculum infused with the foundational principles of Christian theology. He said, "You should be furnished with right principles as well with right knowledge. The first requisite is the religious and moral knowledge of right and wrong. The next is acquaintance with the history of mankind." Very interesting. History, and first right and wrong, and then history, because we learn from our history. And so it's very powerful, those things. And he joined the Methodist Episcopal Church at the age of 18. Obviously, he was forced to leave his home because his father was Anglican. I'm going to touch up on this Anglican and Methodist things going on there. And so he became an itinerant minister, or circuit rider, how they called it, in the Niagara area for the politically disadvantaged religion. And because of this, a lot of his tolerant views on terms of religious, those who was very influential. He emerged as Episcopal Methodism's most articulate defender in the public sphere as early as 1825. And he published a lot of articles that went against John Strachan's views. John Strachan came from what was called, belonged to the Family Compact. And the Family Compact was a group of men who exercised the most political power in Upper Canada, which is modern Ontario, from the 1810s to the 1830s. And they were in opposition to democracy, more very conservative. They wanted to keep it in terms of the aristocrat. And Ryerson was against all this, and he was against the government controlling, one religion controlling the government. And that's where we see the different clashes here. and he defended the rights of Methodists who were not Anglican and other groups, the influence of the Wesleyans from John Wesley. And so there we see that we see the contrast between John Strachan, who wanted the Anglican religion to take control over the government and to influence it, and there was the influence of a small group, the Family Compact, who was controlling a lot of the political power. And Ryerson was saying, no, that shouldn't happen. So the Anglican Church, as well as the Roman Catholic Church, when Constantine made the state religion Roman Catholicism, which just means Catholic just means universal in Latin. So they knew how to control the state, but Ryerson and the religious freedom came from people like Ryerson in terms of their going against this, trying to control one religion should control one particular branch of that religion should control the whole government. And you say the government should do the government thing. The religious leaders should stick to the religious, the spiritual aspects of the people. So that's where we see a little bit of, in terms of tension there. And in terms of, in 1791, there were large tracts of land set aside for the maintenance of Protestant clergy. So he was instrumental in that with the Methodist Church. So, and there's a glass window that honors Ryerson at Central United Church in Weston. It was in 1825. It was split there. This is very interesting also because a lot of the education system in the Western civilization has influenced the world in terms of how to educate people. He brought about a lot of these revolutionization. He revolutionized many things in Canada, and like the libraries, he wanted a library in every school, and that there should be an educational journal, a professional development convention for teachers, and there should be a central textbook pressed using Canadian authors and securing land grants for universities. So a lot of these things, Ryerson was very influential, and he leaves that legacy there. And again, as I said later, I'll talk about the Canadian residential school system, which talks of the natives later on in the video, which was a negative aspect of how trying to enforce Christianity on the natives. Now let's look at William Osler, Dr. William Osler. And he profoundly influenced the medical field. And if you go to a hospital, it's interesting. A lot of new hospitals that are made, there's fighting in terms of how to name it, and certain part of it should be named after such and such and this and that. But when you look at it, for instance, the William Health Care System or the William Health Centers, it's really been named after this man who was a man of God, influenced by the Bible, William Osler. And it was really, it was not his first choice. He wanted to be a minister before that. However, he changed his mind after years studying in McGill and started studying to medical school. And so the William Osler Health System, they're in the GTA, mainly in the Etobicoke and Brampton. And after he finished his studies in Montreal, McGill University, medical school, he went on to study in Europe. And in London, while he was in London, England, he became the first identify the clumps of and that form in blood after it's drawn from the body. Very important. And he concluded that these clumps, known as blood platelets, platelets, had a role in blood clotting, in play in clotting. Um, and this discovery led him to McGill call him back, and he became a professor in psychology at the age of 24 in McGill University in Montreal. And he became known as the baby professor because he was his age. And but he had this determination to improve the health of ordinary people, and that was influenced by the God of the Bible to help people. So that's very positive for those that are teenagers or young adults that are young. You know what? Don't let that be a stumbling block for your life. You know what? Just like William Moser, 24 years of age, very influential baby professor. You just follow God, follow the call of God on your life, and stick to it, and be conviction of what things you stand up for, what principles you stand up, what morals you stand up. Be a man, a woman of your word. And so that's very good. There's also at that time trichinosis, which is a parasitic infection, was considered a rare disease.